That evening, Scott was supposed to cook lasagna for dinner, but he was running late from work, but really he was at Amber's house. Laci ends up serving like some frozen dinner situation. Laci's mom, Sharon, she recalled that Laci was like really annoyed, but she didn't voice her frustrations to her mom, but you could tell that she was annoyed. So on the morning of Christmas Eve, Scott said that he woke up around 8 a.m. and when he got up, like Laci was already up. Scott said that when he got up, Laci was already up and that she was eating a bowl of cereal and that she had to eat first thing when she got up because if she didn't, she would get sick. But later on down the line, Scott said that when he woke up this morning, they ate cereal together. So his story kind of changed a bit. Scott said that he asked Laci what she had planned for the day. She was going to go on a walk that morning. She was also going to make some gingerbread cookies and then go to the store to buy special bread because she wanted to make French toast. Now, before Scott took off that morning, he loaded 3 patio umbrellas into his truck to take to his warehouse. A neighbor saw Scott doing this, smiled and waved. He then went back in, filled a mop bucket for Laci so she would clean while he was out. Why don't you clean, Scott? He tells Laci, I'm going golfing. So he heads out, but he realizes that it's too cold to go golfing. So he went on a fishing trip instead at the Berkeley Marina, which was about 90 miles outside of Modesto. Before going fishing, Scott goes to his warehouse at work because that's where he has that boat, right? So he goes there and he's kind of working on the computer for a bit. And then he ends up leaving at 11:18 a.m. And he purchases a boating ticket at 12:54 p.m. When asked later on, Scott couldn't say what he was fishing for, or when asked what he used to fish with, like what kind of bait and lures he used, he didn't have an answer. He didn't really go fishing ever. It was just very random. Plus, on top of that, it's December and he's going fishing at 12:54 p.m., which, correct me if I'm wrong here, but I did some Googling, so I'm a professional, okay? But it's just a terrible time to go fishing. You don't go fishing at this time. I don't fish either. I don't know a damn thing about fishing. Okay, so later on, Scott said that when he went fishing, he gets out there on the water and he realizes that he forgot his like bait, which he couldn't even tell you what kind of bait he had, but he forgot it. And then he still tried to fish anyways, but he decided to head back in because he got wet and was cold. So a few people said that they saw Laci walking her dog around 10 a.m. that morning near the park, but their dog was found alone outside the home, like running around the block, and he still had his leash on. On his way home, Scott stops for gas at around 3:25, and then he ends up back at his warehouse around 4:15 p.m. He loaded his boat back into storage and then went home within the next 30 minutes. When Scott got home, that's when he said he saw that the dog was like out in the yard with the leash still on, and then he removed the leash from the dog. He goes inside, and when he walks inside, he sees that the mop bucket is still out and full. After that, Scott said that he went outside to grab the mail, and that's when like he noticed Laci's car in the driveway, which sounds weird, but that's what he said. He assumed that she was at her mom's house, so he took out some leftover pizza, poured himself a glass of milk, and did a load of laundry, then went to go take a shower. Milk and pizza, that's a choice. So Scott said after he took a shower, he got ready and then he checked the answering machine, and that's when he realized that Ron had left a message for Laci, and he said that he knew something was wrong like at that moment and he started to worry. Scott ends up calling Sharon and he's asking her like, hey, is Laci there? And she says no. Scott tells her that Laci's car was there and that their dog was in the backyard with her leash on, just the whole thing. Like it was weird. Sharon told him to call Laci's friends. She realized that Scott used the word missing. Laci's missing. And that's when she like just had this sinking feeling in her gut that something wasn't right. So Sharon had Ron call the police, and while he was doing that, she got ready and she headed out to the dog park to see if maybe Laci had fallen, she had gotten hurt, anything, you know? So Sharon tells Scott to meet her there, but he didn't arrive until much, much later with the police. So that night, about 70 to 80 people showed up to help search for Laci. Sharon asked Scott where she was that day, and he said that Laci was supposed to go to the store, walk the dog, make gingerbread cookies, and that was really it. So Ron asked Scott, did you go golfing? Scott says he didn't go golfing. He went fishing. Now, Ron, again, an avid fisherman, he asked, what time did you go fishing at? And Scott's I went at 9:30 a.m., which is a lie. But Ron came back and said, that's what time you come home. I think Ron kind of knew something was up. Police questioned Scott. They go inside the home to take photos. Police thought it was weird that Scott came home and did a load of laundry. He didn't do a full load. He just washed his own clothes. Now, on top of the washer, there were a bunch of dirty rags, a whole pile of dirty rags. And in the bedroom, there was a full basket of dirty clothes in the hamper. It didn't mean anything, but at the same time, it was weird because why would he just wash his own clothes and not throw some of the other items from the laundry basket in there? Or even the dirty rags that were literally sitting on top of the washer. I mean, you'd be surprised sometimes. So they're okay, what were you washing your clothes for? Also, on the dresser in the couple's bedroom, Laci's jewelry was still there and her purse. Now, Laci always wore her jewelry. She had a couple of pieces that she only took off when she went to bed. If she was up, she was wearing her jewelry. So after searching the home and talking to Scott, that's when police had a feeling that he wasn't being fully honest. But they also had nothing on him. So, they had to let it be. But police ask if, they can go see Scott's office, his warehouse area. Scott takes them out there. Inside, they find his boat, a homemade anchor, and signs that there were more anchors made, in the area, but they weren't there. The more police talked to Scott and the family, things just weren't making sense. Laci was 27 at the time, 8 months pregnant. Based off what everyone was saying, it seemed like she was having a difficult pregnancy towards the end. And the fact that she was up, possibly walking the dog or running around doing errands, just wasn't making sense. Plus, it was Christmas Eve. Most couples, married couples at least, have a laundry list of things to do before going to their family's house or having, guests over. So why was Scott golfing? Police ask Laci's family, hey, they pull them aside. They're hey, should we be looking into Scott a little bit more? Do you get any weird feelings about him? Laci's family said absolutely not. No, there's no way he did anything to her, adamant that he was not the cause of Laci's disappearance. The media got a hold of this story and it was literally everywhere. Laci's family would talk to the media and they believed that Laci was still alive somewhere. They pleaded with the cameras, trying to talk to whoever's watching the TV at home. If you're out there, if you took Laci, just please release her. And it's just heartbreaking to watch. But they really believed that somebody had kidnapped her and maybe were trying to hold her hostage to take her child. And at one point, Laci's whole family and Scott did a TV interview where Laci's parents are looking at the screen and saying, if you have Laci, please just let her go. Again, just truly believing that she's being held captive somewhere. And then they cut to Scott. And Scott's just sitting there and he's well, she may not be coming back and we kind of have to look at the possibilities. Scott, buddy, read the room. Okay, he was literally the only one who said that. You can't pretend, Scott, So investigators, they go back out to Scott's place of work. They're just trying to find something. Scott told investigators in the beginning that he would gladly take a polygraph test to prove that he had nothing to hide. But they ask him again and he changes his mind. He's no, I don't want it. No. And Scott confesses that he didn't tell anyone about the boat he bought and that he was nervous to speak with them because of the fact that he bought a boat without telling anyone. Also, his internet search history showed that he looked up the bay tides and waves that day. So they start looking around Scott's workplace and then they notice that there's a lot of things that were moved around and a little different from the last time that they were there. Someone had cleaned up a bit. This time though, police find some pliers in the boat, which had a long strand of black hair inside of them. Tons of tips were coming into police and about 5 different people said that they saw Scott out at the bay that day that Laci went missing. And nobody saw him golfing. So this is when Scott changes his story from golfing to now fishing. He was fishing.